Hello, hi, and a very, very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on which part of the world you're checking in from. I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. Thank you so much for taking time to be part of Manage Engine's AD product demo series. Today is day one of this series, and I am Sharda Murthy. I'm a product expert in Manage Engine AD Self Service Plus. Today is the AD Self Service Plus product demo, and I am going to be your presenter for the day. Before I jump into today's session, I would like to do a very quick audio and video check. So if you can hear me loud and clear, and if you have no issues in viewing the screen, please drop in a yes message in the chat box provided. I'm going to wait for a couple of confirmations before I proceed further with today's session. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Perfect. So excited to be part of today's session and be the presenter for the day. But I have a very quick disclaimer. I'm checking in from India. I'm working from home. As comfortable as it is, I am also working from my home network. So in case there are any technical glitches, in case the audio or video is not clear at any point of time, please keep me notified by dropping a message in the chat box provided. With Zoom as a presenter, I unfortunately do not have an audience view, so I wouldn't know if the broadcast is seamless unless you keep me informed. So please do so. And in case of a power outage, in case my internet gets disconnected for a brief period of time, I will be back on within a couple of seconds. I have my backup ready, so please stick with me through the session in case there are any technical glitches. Worst case, if I'm unable to reconnect, I promise you that I will pass on a recorded copy of the entire session. All right, that's a very quick disclaimer that I wanted to throw. That said, session 1, AD Self-Service Plus product demonstration. Just to understand my audience better, I want to know what part of you have worked with AD Self-Service Plus before. If you are a customer, if you have worked with the application before, please drop in a yes message in the chat box. If not, please drop a no message in the chat console. If you're evaluating the application, if you have no experience of working with the application, please drop in a no message. This is just to try and understand how many of you are, aware of what AD Self-Service Plus is. Pardon me, what AD Self-Service Plus is and its capabilities. Thank you, Divakar. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Frankie. Thank you so much. All right. So right now we are at a 60-40 with 60% of you who have not used the application. All right. Perfect. So this is going to be a very quick walkthrough of the product's capabilities, the application's capabilities, and to walk you through, pardon me, all that you can achieve. I'm really sorry about that. Yeah, this is a very quick walkthrough of all the capabilities of this particular application, what you can achieve with AD Self-Service Plus. So we're going to start by learning how to install and configure AD Self-Service Plus on an organization level. What are the prerequisites and how you can achieve seamlessly deploying the solution on an organization level. Just to keep it, just to cover all the exercises in today's agenda, I'm going to walk you through the end user perspective on whatever you see on your screen. I am going to perform a live password reset. I'm going to walk you through how password policies are enabled, how you can leverage MFA for self-service actions across domains, across logons, how you can also notify users and implement SSO. Since AD Self-Service Plus is a password self-service and single sign-on application, it's an end-user application. I am going to give you an end-user perspective on how this is going to look, how things work. And if you do have more questions, if you want to deploy the application in your organization, if you have questions on configuration, you can always reach out to me. I'll pass on my email address towards the end of today's session. But that said, yes, we will start by learning how to install and configure AD Self-Service Plus. This is especially for those of you who are just getting started with the application, who've just downloaded the application. So AD Self-Service Plus is accessible on the web at adselfserviceplus.com. Click on the download link, the download icon that you see. You have an option to download 32-bit or a 64-bit. But before you do that, I would highly recommend you to quickly check the system requirements. Since this application requires access to your domain, requires administrative authentication, I would recommend you to download this in a member server. It does not have to be necessarily downloaded directly in your DC. But that said, please browse through the system requirements before you download and explore the application. This is especially before deploying the application on an organizational level. We support multiple servers and clients, multiple browsers. We also support certain databases. We support multiple logon agents as well. So all the details that you require in terms of the prerequisites is right here in the download icon. The download page under system requirements. All right. So 2 things to remember: ensure that you download it in your member server. And the second important thing is to ensure that the application actually has access to your domain. So if you do not have any firewall restrictions, the application will be able to automatically fetch the domain details based on the member server it is downloaded in. But if you do have firewall restrictions, then that might be something that you need to work on. That said, I also want to quickly point out that every release that happens is listed in the AD Self-Service Plus release notes. By release, I mean, builds that are released, product enhancements, issue fixes, and also new modules that come out, the upgrades that come out are all listed in this particular page. So it's pretty frequent, the issue fiction. It's quite late and my tongue is just rolling too much today. I'm sorry about that. The issue fixes quite often, it's quite frequent, and we constantly work on upgrading our features. We constantly work on enhancing the application. So make sure that you are, up to date if you are an existing customer, if you have already deployed AD Self-Service Plus. This is one quick tip that I want to pass on to every single one of you. That said, for today's session, if you'd like to explore the application along with me, I also want to quickly point out that we have a live actionable demo. It's available or accessible at demo.adselfserviceplus.com. I'm going to quickly pass on the demo link for you in the chat console. It's a live actionable demo. It's available 24/7. And yes, you can also leverage the demo while exploring the application with me today. Just log in as an administrator, no sign up required, no credentials asked. You will be able to explore the application along with me. And that said, I also want to quickly remind you that AD Self-Service Plus is absolutely free with 0 restrictions for up to 30 days. A completely accessible 30-day free trial is what the application comes with. So if you are just getting started, you can definitely download the application, test things out, and see if it works well for users in your organization before taking it forward. All right. Yes, that said, I'm going to quickly walk you through what I have done in terms of my installation. Since I am working with an end user application, I have pre-configured the setup that I'm working with. So like I said, I've simply downloaded AD Self-Service Plus just a few years back. And yes, I have configured the domain that I'm working with. I've taken a remote desktop connection to the server that's physically available at my office. I'm working from the administrative console. I will quickly walk you through what I've done in my ADUC as well. I also want to remind you that this is a complete lab setup. So I have created, a domain for the workshop purpose. I've called it sspworkshop.com, and I've created an OU under my name. I've sorted OUs and groups under this particular OU that I've created. All these are dummy users. Nobody is real. I've also created test user accounts, trying to replicate a small organizational structure. All right. So I will be working with a couple of these user accounts that you see today while I'm performing different self-service actions. But once I log into AD Self-Service Plus, this is how I would approach deploying the application. I would also recommend working with a similar workflow because it's pretty systematic and it's worked for us, as we help deploy across multiple organizations that we visit while working with administrators. It's worked for us. So yes, the very first thing that you would do once you log into the application is if you do not have any application restriction based on your firewall settings, the domain will be automatically configured. All right. AD Self-Service Plus definitely supports multiple domains. As you see, I am working with two different domains. I've pre-configured two different domains. But if your domain is not automatically fetched, you can always choose to add it manually and key in the domain name, pick the domain controller that you're working with. And it's important to authenticate your identity to ensure there is a domain sync between AD Self-Service Plus and your native Active Directory. So please make use of administrative credentials to authenticate the domain credentials right here. Once that is done, your domain is set up. I have successfully authenticated both my test domains right here. I'm working with SSP Workshop today, so I've set it as my default domain. I'm going to jump to the configuration tab next. So what will happen if your domain is automatically fetched is something like this. By default, the entire domain is listed under the policy configuration. We call it self-service policy, and all the permissions for all the users in this particular domain is enabled by default. So what we mean by permissions is basically allowing users to perform password resets, account unlocks, updating information in Active Directory, and also being able to change passwords. All right. But what I have done is I have also customized the self-service policies that I'm working with based on user roles in this particular case. You can definitely work with departments. You can work based on pre-existing groups in your Active Directory. You can definitely configure based on, let's say, geographical restrictions, compliance mandates, pretty much anything that works for you on an organizational level. You can also play around with what level of self-service actions you would like to delegate to users in your organization. So let's work with a test policy right now. I have a bunch of test users. I want them to only be able to self-update personal information in AD. I click on select OUs and groups. I can work with multiple domains. I'm working with SSP Workshop today. I'm going to do an OU-based access. So I'm picking the test user OU right here. I can choose to not inherit child OUs, save this particular policy, and you will see it right here. So it is completely up to you to be able to customize different self-service actions based on user groups present in AD. That said, as you saw, the prompt right here indicates that I need to configure multi-factor authentication, because for any user to be able to perform a seamless password reset, an account unlock, or even be able to log into endpoints, you can enable different authenticators so that users verify their identity with the said authenticators. So by default, I'm going to click on the test policy that we are working with. By default, the security question answer and email-based verification is configured. For email-based verification to be configured, you need to set up your mail server, which is something that you can do from the administrative console. You can choose to pick different authenticators listed right here. You can also work with the AD Self-Service Plus mobile app-based authentication if you do not want to rely on other third-party applications for authentication. That said, it's important to be able to set different authenticators for different actions, self-service actions, as well as login access to endpoints. That said, there is also a note that lets me know that this particular user group does not have the permission for a password reset or account unlock, which is important. I'm going to quickly jump to the admin policy that I've previously set up, that I've configured. So I have enabled 2 factors of authentication for MFA, for password resets. I've enabled 2 factors of authentication for password resets. I can also choose to set authenticators as mandatory. I've enabled one-factor authentication for the AD self-service plus logon, as well as my endpoints right here. So now I'm going to very quickly jump back to the console, the slide deck that I have, and quickly walk you through what I'm about to do next. So we don't know how to install and configure AD Self-Service Plus. Trust me when I say this, it's going to take you less than 5 minutes to set up AD Self-Service Plus for your as an administrator in your organization, and all you need to do is authenticate domain access. But that said, it's important to onboard users to be able to, allow them to leverage the password self-service actions, especially password reset and account unlock for users who are working remotely, for users who, frequently get into trouble trying to remember their passwords. All right. So to allow domain users to reset their passwords or unlock their accounts, the important step here is to give them the permission to do that, which is what we did by building self-service policies and also enabling multi-factor authentication for these user accounts. All right. But what comes next is to onboard users to sign up with these authenticators to basically log into AD Self-Service Plus and verify their identity for the very first time so that they can make use of these authenticators to enjoy the benefits of password self-service, which is what I'm going to talk about next. But as soon as I do that, I'm also going to walk you through how you can leverage MFA across different checkpoints. If you do have any questions, please keep them coming. Please make use of the Q&A tab to drop in your questions. I would be more than happy to customize the session to answer your questions. So yes, so far we have set up different policies. We have set up multi-factor authentication as well. I am going to quickly sign out of the admin console and log in as an end user. So this is what you see by default. You can choose to customize this console as well. I hope this user's password is not expired. I click on login. And since I have enabled two-factor authentication for the AD Self-Service Plus logon, this is my workflow. This also holds good for single sign-on application access. I will talk about that real soon. But since I'm logging in as Sharada, who belongs to the administrative policy, self-service policy, I have the privilege to self-update personal information. I have the privilege to change my password. I also have single sign-on access to some applications. I have an option to enroll with different authenticators. I can definitely perform a password reset as well, which I will walk you through real soon. So yes, as you can see, I've already enrolled with a couple of authenticators. I can choose to enroll selectively based on my convenience. And this is because I am an administrative, I'm a user belonging to the administrative policy. If not, what happens is that I will be forced to enroll with certain authenticators, and you can set the forced enrollment option for multiple users. So enrollment is basically the process of signing up with different authenticators so that I can make use of these authenticators while verifying my identity. All right, so I'm going to click to log into my G Suite account. All right, let's work with another workflow that I've planned. So I'm going to skip that and quickly move on to actually performing a live password reset. I will do that in just a bit. I will show you how single sign-on works in just a bit. But yes, I'm going to hit change a password right now. I'm going to click on the reset password or account unlock option available or embedded on my Gina CP console. I, as an end user, can perform a password reset from my logon screens from the AD Self-Service Plus web portal, from the mobile app, as well as the mobile browser. I'm going to click to reset password. Enter the captcha. I can choose to selectively revoke the captcha as well. I am accessing the Microsoft Authenticator on my mobile device. In the meantime, entering the captcha. Just a couple of seconds, my previous passcode is going to expire. I have a new code. I click on continue. And since Microsoft Authenticator was set as mandatory, I had to go through the Microsoft Authenticator for verifying user identity. I now have to go through one additional factor of authentication. So I'm going to pick security questions. These are not recommended settings. I'm just working with a combination of authenticators today. You can definitely enforce, mandate any authenticator that works best for users in your organization. A secondary factor of authentication is true. I want you to notice that since I have enabled password synchronization for my Office 365, I as an end user, when I say I mean administrator, but now I as an end user will be able to not only reset my password across my AD, but also synchronize it with Office 365. So let me key in a password that I know is weak. Seems to satisfy most of the complexity rules that you see here. Once again, I have enabled a custom granular password policy. I'm going to hit reset password. And I have an alert message which says my password has failed to meet the password policy requirements. All right. And that is because I have literally made use of the word password. This is not an ideal password policy. I have configured this on purpose, and I will show you how this works from a change password console as well. So I'm keying in my username, entering my old password. I am going to key in the password that I just did once again. All right. Showing you what the password is. It's a weak predictable pattern. It definitely satisfies multiple check boxes, but that is not what a password policy is about, right? It's important to have a password that takes into account password entropy, the susceptibility factor of a particular password from being compromised, and not just being a checklist that users have to satisfy. And it's important to enable more advanced complexity rules, which is something that you can do right on the logon screen and educate users about why their password is being rejected, also the complexity rules that they need to meet. So I have deliberately set this as my password to show you that a good password is not just about checking multiple boxes or including, multiple complexity rules. It's about taking into account the limited number of complexity, playing with prioritizing length over complexity, and definitely paying attention to usability, paying attention to the user experience, but also taking into account that weak predictable patterns cannot be set as passwords. Dictionary words, predictable patterns, palindrome passwords, old passwords, incremental passwords are all advanced password complexity rules that you need to introduce on an organization level. And you can do that for user groups. You can also customize different passwords for different user group. So here you see that I have increased the password length, but I've not included many complexities, advanced complexity rules. So you can definitely work around with different password policy for different user groups. I'm going to log back in to AD Self-Service Plus as an administrator. All right. And very, very quickly walk you through how you can set up a password policy enforcer. So I'm going to jump back to the configuration tab, click on password policy enforcer, and this is how you can customize different password policies for different user groups. Highly, highly recommend enforcing this across the Gina CP and the ADUC console as well, which is what I've done. And by default, any custom granular password policy that you enforce for a particular policy is automatically enforced for password synchronization enabled applications as well. So jumping to password synchronization. I have password synchronization enabled for my Office 365 account. I also have single sign-on enabled for G Suite. I have selectively given access to these applications for specific user groups or specific self-service policies. The idea behind selective access to applications, selective access to authenticators is to ensure only the right person requires access or has access to a particular application. And you can achieve that once again with AD Self-Service Plus. So That is a workflow that I'm going to walk you through. The configuration steps. This is being pre-configured, but the configuration steps for our pre-configured or, default list of applications is available in the help document. So if you'd like to set it up and explore, please refer the help document. You can also write to me and my support team at any point of time if you run into hiccups. We'll be more than happy to assist you configure applications, single sign-on and password synchronization for applications in your organization. That's it. Let's put this to action. What I'm going to do now is jump back to the configuration tab. I'm going to show you that the marketing policy has access only to reset passwords and account unlock. And now I am going to log in as a user directly from my G Suite account. I'm going to log in as Adam. I click on next. And I am redirected to my AD Self-Service Plus console. This is the workflow, but what would happen is the user will not have access to the administrative console that is customizable. I click to log in. I have entered my AD password, my first factor of authentication. I have also enabled two-factor authentication right here. So sticking with the basic security question answer. If you notice for this particular user, I have an option between two authenticators. I'm picking security question answer. Entering the captcha, I click on continue. And yes. So just a quick recap, I tried to access my G Suite account. What had happened is I was redirected to the AD Self-Service Plus console. I want you to quickly notice that I have accessed the application from the incognito tab, which means there's no way I have verified user identity to access this particular single sign-on enabled application. And that is why an AD Self-Service Plus based authentication check happens. So what happens if I've already logged into AD Self-Service Plus, right? In that particular case, I would be able to have a one-click seamless access to my Google account as soon as I, access my Google account from the URL, the web link, or from the AD Self-Service Plus console. But what happened here is a security check. I had a user identity verification happen before I could get access to my account. So this is something that I wanted to walk you through. But that said, when I actually log in to AD Self-Service Plus directly as an end user, I still have to verify my identity with security questions. Click on continue, keying in the answer. Click on continue again. I want you to notice that the end user portal looks a tad bit different from how it looked while we accessed Sharada's account. I do not have an option to self-update. I do not have an option to change passwords. I can simply access my single sign-on application. And I also have my password synchronization enabled application listed right here. So yes, you will be able to customize the end user portal based on the access that you provide for different user groups. And that holds good for access to applications and authenticators as well, not just the self-service permissions that you see here. And pretty much everything that's available under self-service can be customized based on the self-service policies that you've built right here. So if you have different user groups, if you want to work with different levels of permissions, if you want to work with different access, if you also want to work with different configurations, you can definitely achieve all that. Simply ensure that you have the right policy configured right here. All right, I am going to quickly check if I have any questions. If you do have any questions, please keep them coming. If you have a particular use case that you're trying to achieve with AD Self-Service Plus, please shoot your questions in the Q&A tab. That said, we already know how to enforce a separate, strong password policy based on OUs and groups present in AD. We have used multi-factor authentication as a leverage for password self-service. I'm going to very quickly talk about how you can enable MFA for domain logins as well, including VPN logins, and notify users about their impending password expiration. That is next in today's agenda. Um, this might seem like a lot of information in a really short period of time, and I understand if it's overwhelming. I just want to quickly remind you that this entire session is being recorded and it's being recorded live. So please don't worry. I'm going to ensure that every single one of you receive a copy of today's session along with the slide deck for you to help you explore the application whenever you want to. That said, let me very quickly try to take another remote desktop connection to the user account Sharda. So I'm going to log in, keying in my first factor of authentication, which is my AD password. The two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication that you enable for endpoints, including your Windows, Mac, Linux systems, users' Windows, Mac, Linux systems, can be customized as well based on user groups. And it's also enabled for remote desktop users as well. So yes, I am very quickly going to verify my identity with security questions. I have different authenticators configured at different checkpoints. Like I said, these are not recommended settings. I'm just working with a combination of authenticators. That said, once I have successfully verified my identity with not one but two factors of authentication, I then have a welcome and a secure access to my Windows account here today, right there. So you will be able to, selectively enable two-factor authentication for user groups, different authenticators as well. Like I said, once again, simply pick the level of authentication you like to enable, the authenticators that you like to enable right here under multi-factor authentication. All right. I hope my voice is still audible. I just received a message, a prompt that said my network connection is unstable. So I hope the broadcast is still seamless. But that said, yes, jumping back to talk about MFA for endpoints, you will be able to simply check the level of authentication, pick the level of authentication, and check boxes to pick your authenticators as well for different user groups. That said, I also have VPN two-factor authentication enabled for this particular user. I click on OK. I have configured Google Authenticator for this particular user. Waiting for the first factor of authentication to go through. Sorry about that. All right, it's taking a bit of a time. Stick with me. I am going to redo that. It usually does not take that long. No wonder it's taking longer than I thought. I'm going to key in the password that I believe is right. One last attempt. All right, when this is happening, I'm going to quickly jump to talk about password expiration notification schedulers, and we'll come back to check if it's true. It usually does not take that long. I have no idea what's wrong. Yes, perfect. So my first factor of authentication is true. I am going to walk you through another case. So what I'm going to do now is actually key in the wrong OTP and see what happens. I'm going to wait for that to connect to the Google server and get back to me. But in the meantime, I have my password expiration notification scheduler up and running. This is my default scheduler that I've been working with. Yes. So this is what happens when the code is invalid. So what do I do when I'm a user, end user, and I try to, bypass the secondary factor of authentication? I will simply be denied access. All right. And this is across all the authenticators and all the checkpoints where MFA is enabled. I can hear some of you saying it's obvious. Yes, it is. But I just want to quickly highlight the fact that if you have, as an administrator, enforced two factors of authentication or three factors of authentication for a particular checkpoint, users cannot selectively verify, lesser authentication authenticators to verify user identity and get access. They will be simply denied access. So yes, in that particular case, you might have to step in. And yes, what would happen if I actually key in the right password? I would have a secure connection. I will do that too. All right, I have my Google Authenticator code. I'm hoping it's not going to take longer than a few seconds. In the meantime, let me quickly log into my Google account. I have created a test account under my name, keying in my secondary factor of authentication. All right, this is going to expire. New passcode. I click send. While that's going through, let me quickly log in. So I have created an email address for the workshop purpose. And for all the test users that I've been working with, I have, mapped them to this particular email address. I have used this as the email attribute. So what I'm going to do now is I have already triggered a password expiration notification. I have set up a scheduler. This particular scheduler can be sent out to the entire domain irrespective of your AD Self-Service Plus product licensing, irrespective of whether you're a customer or not. You will still be able to make use of this particular module for absolutely free, and you will be able to notify users across your organization for absolutely free. So I have set up a scheduler. I've also chosen to notify both password expired users as well as users whose passwords are soon to expire. I'm going to walk you through a couple of emails that have been triggered this morning. Since it's a scheduler, it runs every day, depending on the user whose password is going to expire. Since I have a bunch of test user accounts that I've created with different password expiration frequency, all right. I have never seen that before, so I'm going to try it again. My Google Authenticator is also having an error. Sorry about that. I've never seen that before. It's a simple Gmail account. I'm going to try that again. Sorry about that. I am logging in to this email address. I'm not sure if it's an issue with the Google Mail server or the Google server itself, because my Google authentication is also failed. All right, I seem to have access to my Gmail account. I'm waiting for this to go through. It's just a bad day for Adam while trying to log into this account. I have no idea why. I was in fact able to establish a connection just a few minutes before I even logged into these sessions. So I'm going to do that one last time. Try my luck. I'm either messing the password that I'm keying in or something is wrong with my secondary factor of authentication. So jumping back to talk about the password expiration notification right here, this is how it's going to look. Definitely not as messy because, like I said, I've configured one particular email address for all the users that I'm working with. So different users receive different emails with different text messages. You can customize this and you can choose to make use of the password expiration notification module to send out mail notifications to every single user in your organization. Like I said, it's a completely free module, so you will be able to enjoy the benefits of password expiration notifier without even having a license to AD Self-Service Plus. So that is also something that I wanted to quickly point out. This is how the email notifications are going to be. Once the user receives the notification, they will be able to click on the mail, the SMS, or the push notification, and then have secure access to AD Self-Service Plus. The URL can be linked. They can then choose to reset their password and seamlessly reset password for AD and multiple on-premises and cloud-based applications. That said, I have finally established a secure connection to my VPN. This particular setup that I'm working with is hosted on the cloud. I have AD and ADSSP hosted on the cloud for this particular VPN configuration that I'm working with. So that's probably why it took a lot more time, because I'm working with a not so great internet connection too. Yes, like I said, password expiry notification. I have a couple of password expiry notification as well. Yes. So the user Adam has received a notification that says, if you do not change your password, it's going to expire soon. So you will be able to customize this. You will be able to enjoy or leverage this particular module. And with that, I've almost come to the end of this particular product demo, which is to talk about, the last module is to talk about implementing single sign-on, a very quick walkthrough. Like I said, I've pre-configured single sign-on right here. I really hope my connection is not bad and the broadcast is seamless. In case you're facing any issues, please keep me notified. I am getting a prompt from Zoom, but my screen looks pretty good, so I do not know if it's just me or if I actually have an internet issue. So please keep me notified if there is any issues. But that's it. Single sign-on is available for more than 100 pre-configured applications that you see on the screen. You can pick an application that you'd like to enable single sign-on for. Key in the details required. You also need to configure the IDP details on the service provider to enable access or connection between these two applications. And in order to do that, we also have a stepwise guide with pictorial representation of how you can set up single sign-on for different applications. So access the help guide, click Know Your Product. It has the same workflow as the application. Under the configuration tab, you will find self-service. Under self-service, you will find password sync and single sign-on. And if you click on single sign-on, we have all the applications listed right here. You can choose to click a particular application and you will be able to set it up for users belonging to particular OUs, groups, or the entire domain across multiple domains as well for that application. Pretty straightforward. But if you do run into trouble, if issues with setting up SSO for a particular application, you want to configure it for custom applications, and if you have trouble, please feel free to write to us. The same holds good for password synchronization as well. We support password sync for 18 applications, a couple of on-premises applications, and a few cloud applications as well. The advantage of password synchronization is that you can force users to set one password across all these applications, which is synchronized with native Active Directory. And the other advantage is you can also enable a custom granular password policy for all these applications that you see on the screen. Once again, that's completely up to you. There are multiple levels of granularity. You can choose to customize every single option that you see. You can choose to specifically give access to a particular user group. You can choose to specifically give access to, the entire domain, and then fine tune it based on certain granular restrictions that we support. So explore the advanced settings as well. I am not going to spend a lot of time walking you through the configuration steps today, specifically because we are pressed for time, and I'm going to quickly wrap up the session for the day. But if you do have questions, please feel free to write to me. My email address is sharda@manageengine.com, and I will set up a personalized demonstration to help you configure or set up the application in your organization. One question from Tommy. What was the website again for the products? It is adselfserviceplus.com. Thank you. If you do have more questions, please keep them coming. I'm going to take time to answer your questions offline. I understand that I am past the time that I've promised. So I'm going to quickly wrap up the session for today. And before I do that, before you check out of today's session, a humble request to drop in the answers to the poll that you see on the screen. This will help us identify the solutions that you're evaluating. This will help us understand the audience better and help you with the evaluation process. If AD Self-Service Plus is an application that you are evaluating, and if you require help with setting up AD Self-Service Plus in your organization or customizing the application to meet your needs, please feel free to drop in your poll right now, and our product specialists will reach out to you and assist you through a free evaluation. I also want to very quickly remind you that we provide technical support through your evaluation process as well, even with your free module. So you can definitely avail free technical support for the application that you're exploring without having a user license. So yes, that is something that I definitely wanted to quickly talk about. Before I check out of today's session, this is something that I've wanted to talk about. I've been talking about since the pandemic kicked in, which is about what COVID-19 brought along. I'm sure many people sitting here today have experienced the repercussions of COVID. You might be a system administrator, you might be from the IT department, you might be a cybersecurity specialist in your organization. You might play different roles in your organization, but I'm sure at some point of time you've come across a hiccup. And when I say hiccup, I'm talking about cyber security based hiccups, where you are constantly auditing your organization's logs, data, troubleshooting issues, helping users seamlessly have access to applications and devices and machines. And it's important to be able to manage user identities well. But what's even more important, especially at this point of time, even today, even after more than a year of COVID kicking in, is to pay attention to secure access to applications, to devices. And when you have a volume of users in your organization, I want to stress on the fact that you can prevent nearly 30% of social engineering attacks that happen globally by simply enabling an additional factor of authentication for all the users on an organization level. All right, 30% of cyber attacks that happen globally are social engineering attacks. All right, and a big chunk of ransomware, malware attacks play or leverage user identities. All right, and it's important to protect user identities, but more important to safeguard data And one of the easiest ways to be, you know, not be susceptible to cybersecurity attacks, user identity-based compromise, is to simply enable multi-factor authentication. And I wanted to very quickly pass on this information before I check out of today's session. And an application like AD Self Service Plus can definitely help you do that. But if you do have in-house authenticators that you already make use of, if you have Office 365 in your organization, if you have Duo Security or other applications that you already make use of, please enable MFA for all the users on an organization level. I believe it's critical, especially at this point of time, when you have users on an organization level that are extremely easily susceptible to compromise with the spike in cybersecurity attacks. All right. With that, I am going to very quickly wrap up the session for the day. The feedback form is on your screen. If you have any comments, suggestions, ideas, questions, criticism, please feel free to drop in a mail to me or make use of the chat console to drop in your messages. You can also choose to rate me as a presenter on a scale of 1 to 5. You can also choose to rate your overall experience in this particular AD Self-Service Plus product demonstration. That said, I also want to remind you that today is just day one of this Manage Engine IAM product demo series. We're starting with AD Self-Service Plus, which will be followed by AD Audit Plus, one of my favorite solutions and something that's extremely critical, especially to safeguard your cyber defenses. Audit your organization, monitor the changes in your organization. And we have my dear friend, good friend and colleague, Andy, who will be walking you through AD Audit Plus in the upcoming session. So keep your notifications on and looking forward to seeing you all in the upcoming session as well. Before I check out of today's session, I want to quickly put this thought across. I wish, hope, and pray you, your friends, your family, your near and dear are blessed with great health and happiness. Please take great care of yourself and let's come out of this pandemic as healthier, happier individuals. And I wish, hope, and pray that you stay safe and healthy. Yes, let's collectively come out of this pandemic real soon. And on that note, I want to quickly wrap up the session for today. I really hope it was informative. I want to once again thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time and patience. And once again, if you have any questions at any point of time, you know who to reach out to for all your questions on AD Self-Service Plus. And if it's beyond my scope, I promise to redirect you to the right resources. That said, on that note, I'm looking forward to seeing you all in my upcoming sessions. I'm also looking forward to hopefully meet you in the near future, someday soon, in your country or mine. Until then, this is Sharada Murthy from the marketing team of Manage Engine signing off for the day. Thank you so much.